Welcome again to Politically Incorrect. Let me introduce our panel for tonight. Again, a group of thoughtful people, and I'm so glad they can join us. Of course, you all know Laura Innes from ER, her work as actor and director, and I've always thought when she came on our show, no one better to have here on a night like this. Peter Greenberg is the travel expert for the Today Show and the Travel Channel, and I've also been anxious to have you on this show, sir. And of course, Dennis Prager. I was on your show today. You are syndicated all over the country and are at KRLA here in Los Angeles, and I appreciated you giving me some time today. And we will get to our problems here on Politically Incorrect, but we need to put things in perspective. This is the problem that we face in America, which is the most important problem, of course. And President Bush, we just watched him speak here. It's about 7 o'clock here in California. What did you think of the speech?
I wrote a few phrases down while driving. Thank God I'm alive to tell you about it.
Yeah, but you weren't on a cell phone.
No, that is correct. That is right.
You're all right.
Right, exactly. That's the point. To me, the key line, and there were a few, you are either with us or with the terrorists.
Right.
That's it. There's no, well, we don't want to alienate our citizens. We don't want to alienate anybody. The President of the United States has announced, if you are not with us, you are a hostile regime. That's powerful stuff. And that's what the world is now on notice. That is the notice that needed to be said. I loved his tone. He didn't yell, didn't scream. He was very methodical. I love that about him. And I think a lot of Americans who didn't vote for him will come to like that over time. The calm and resolve that he really has.
Okay. I agree.
I think that one thing that makes this very difficult is that here we all sit talking about this, and I am far, far, far from an expert. I'm an actress on a TV show, and I'm very happy to give my opinion, but we all sit here kind of in terror of being perceived as unpatriotic, as uncaring.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, but my response to that particular quote, you are either with us or against us, my reaction was I admired his strength. I feel myself to be enormously patriotic. I am incredibly grateful to be a citizen of this country, but I am so afraid of the kind of polarization of that kind of remark, because it's such a complex situation.
Why is it complex? We were invaded.
Well, because who is the enemy that we attack, and how do we attack them? And there are ways in which countries will contribute that the public at large will never know about, in covert ways, in ways that they must react with information, with what I'm trying to say is I think there are many, many ways that this problem has to be approached, and they don't fit into the paradigm that we are used to constructing for warfare. And I don't pretend to understand them, but I fear that kind of, didactic.
Well, see, the problem is we don't live in a world anymore of boundaries and borders and governments or even ideologies. We live in a world of interests. And so the words that I wrote down tonight, the two words that he said were patient justice. He's setting us up for a long haul here because he doesn't want to be penalized for delay of game. I mean, the thing is, America wants an immediate reaction now, and they may not get it because it's going to take that long to figure out who they are.
And I think we sort of primed the public a little too quickly. I think this speech was a little bit of his way of saying, you know what, calm down. Yeah, wanted dead or alive, but not tomorrow. Because you can't keep people in a frenzy. And they are in a frenzy now. I mean, there's some crazy stuff going on out there.
There is some crazy stuff, but I got to say, if I may, I think that the American people, as a generalization, whatever, 250 million of us, are remarkably calm. We have been invaded for the first time since the War of 1812 on the mainland. Citizens have died in the thousands. Think of how we reacted to Oklahoma City. This is, what, 25 Oklahoma cities? We know for a fact that there are people living amongst us who want to do this again to us, to plant bombs wherever Americans convene, to kill as many of us as possible. I must say that given the numbers of Americans and given the wound we have endured, I think that there is little frenzy. I think there is great calm. And I am proud to be an American.
But you know what? I go one step beyond that. I don't think we're calm as much as we're withdrawn. Because everybody made the reference to Pearl Harbor. I think that was a mistake. Because when Pearl Harbor happened, nobody traveled in this country. It was 6,000 miles away. Unless your child was in the military, you didn't have a point of reference. Everybody's seen the World Trade Center, or some of us have been there. We've all been on airplanes. And sometime, at least between September 11th and today, every one of us, either consciously or subconsciously, put ourselves on that plane, put ourselves in those towers. Most of my friends right now are depressed. They're not calm. They're depressed.
Exactly. It's like when someone dies in your family. People react very strangely to death. And this is a death in our nation, among our nation. And people are reacting. I do not agree with you that we are in some sort of a calm. I mean, yes, there are some extreme examples that you hear about. The man who shot the Sikh because he had a turban on, and that poor guy, the Sikh, is not a Muslim. He is not one of our enemies, and I'm sure he was there saying, please, I am not a Muslim, and the guy was like, close enough, buddy.
Right. That's
and
true,
that's
but
hysteria.
Yes, that is hysteria, but that's why I said there are 250 million of us, and there's precious little hysteria. Let me tell you something.
Well, that's not the impression I got today.
Oh, in your case?
Yes.
In your case,
but
I think there has been some hysteria, and I will return to that. But let me just say again about Americans. There is very little, and I want you to imagine that this happened in another country. Imagine, for example, that in Indonesia, a group of Christians in the name of Christ slaughtered 6,000, 7,000 Indonesian Muslims. Do you think that the Christians in Indonesia would fare as well as Muslims in America? It is not. I mean, it's a rhetorical question. One doesn't need to answer it. Even, I believe, in Europe. I believe if such a concerted slaughter, proportionate, in France or Belgium or elsewhere would have happened.
We are better, and we should be better.
Okay, that's fine. That's all I want to say.
It's like the people who said yesterday, well, the stock market only lost 7%. Only? Yes, it could have been worse. Of course, it could always be worse. But how about those people for cowards? How unpatriotic people who went out and bought the flag and then sold their stocks, who don't salute the red, white, and blue. They salute the green. Anyway, let me take a commercial and we'll come back. Okay, we're back, and as I've said each night on this show, we leave that chair empty this week for Barbara Olson, who was supposed to be a guest of ours on Tuesday. And who was on one of the planes. So we are in tribute to her, and we cherish her memory and her friendship, and when she was on our show, we always loved having her. The other thing I wanted to address, because this truly may be one of the last times I have to talk to my audience, is we disagree on the hysteria. I think there is some, but I do want to thank all the people today who called with support. I truly did not know until today the kind of love, and this is from regular people, important people, people in the press. I did not know the kind of love that was out there for what we do. Unfortunately, it was brought about by hate. But I just want to say that if destroying this show would provide a venting for the anger out there, I would gladly do that for my country in its time of need. And I have said many times on this show that I am a hill of beanser, which comes from Casablanca. Remember in Casablanca he said the problems of 3 little people in the world don't amount to a hill of beans. And I have always said, you know, this country could use a little more of that attitude. And any TV show is truly a hill of beans. But I don't think that some of the hysteria, and there is some hysteria out there, Dennis, I don't think that is a hill of beans. The guy who was in the emergency room and started to strangle his Pakistani doctor, the congressman who wants to check everyone with a diaper on his head. There's a list of songs, including Imagine and Bridge Over Troubled Water, that we're not supposed to play on the radio. You know, my producers, who I love and who always think of the show first, they think that the most important thing to me is this show, but it is not. It never has been. The most important things are honesty, my bond with that audience, who have always counted on me never to pull a punch, and I hope I have never let them down. And my country is a lot more important to me. And I may have spoken insensitively in these sensitive times. And I told the military, who, if anyone watches this show for 8 years, knows I've been the biggest military supporter there is. We probably argued about it. We probably agreed about it. And I'm sorry, truly, if they took it the wrong way, but Dinesh D'Souza and I, who's a conservative, by the way, we were not trying to do anything but be patriotic. And we were saying, if you want to stick your head in the sand and say everything's perfect and just hold hands and sing God Bless America, nothing is going to change, and then people will have died in vain. We were saying, don't do that. Do the patriotic thing. Call attention to what has been the problem in the past and how do we fix it in the future. That's what we were doing, and if we have to go down for it, so be it.
Let me, I had you on my show today, of course, as you made reference to, and I very objectively, frankly, analyzed the text. I didn't hear it, but I did read it, and I read it to my audience and to you. And I found your defense quite reasonable, to be honest. And I said on the radio, and I'll say on your show, that the last time I was on, which is not very long ago, and I even said, sitting in that seat, I can't believe you and I are agreeing on this. You were fervent in your defense of Ronald Reagan, in your of fighting communism. You were in the Vietnam War, you said, is what ultimately led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. This was coming from a man associated very often with views left of center. And so I will say that from my knowledge of what you have said, you are not, and I would put my credibility on the line here, which is all I have is credibility, any of us has, that you have never said anything anti-military in my experience on this program. And
not even a little.
And you know what? It's not even about anti-military. It gets down to a definition of terms. You know, we live in a world of revisionist history, and in these very jingoistic times, you have a situation where, who are the freedom fighters? Are they the terrorists who won the war? And who are the terrorists? Are they the freedom fighters who lost it? Who are they? It depends on how you look at things and from what perspective. I think that's what you were talking about.
Well, and
no,
also,
it's not what. Wait. No, in his defense, he's not. He wasn't making it relative. You were making it relativistic. I think there is a definition to the difference. A freedom fighter is one who fights for freedom. People who blow up children at pizzerias in Israel or airplanes in America are not fighting for freedom. That's not a relativistic. That's a fact.
But if you look at history, I have to differ with you. You take a look at the Israelis in 1948 who blew up the King David Hotel. You cannot tell me that they were just freedom fighters. They were, from their perspective. And I'm not arguing who's right or wrong.
No, wait. But that's revisionist history. They called up the hotel, which was not a hotel.
What did they do?
No, don't make jokes. It was a place for British soldiers. It was not a hotel. It was a place where British soldiers stayed. They were fighting for independence. They warned in advance that there will be a bomb in that hotel, and it is one example. Every country has one example. Right. But Israel is not personified as a state that attacks civilians as such.
And we're not arguing that.
That's what we were talking about. No. We were just saying, if you want to underestimate this enemy, you know, Hitler was called an evil genius. And nobody gets on you for saying, well, what are you doing calling Hitler a genius? Right. No. We're just saying, beware, because evil combined with genius. And we were saying, you know, barbarians, are they? Yes. Moral cowards, are they? But not cowardly in that they're going to take this fight to us, so we had better change our ways, because the way we had been fighting them before wasn't getting the job done.
Whether you like it or not, these guys are smart.
They are smart.
Yeah, they are smart. These guys, you know, this is not an accident. These guys picked those 4 planes very specifically. They were the first planes out of the day, less subject to delay. They were fully loaded with fuel. They were bombs ready to happen. And, interestingly enough, these were planes that each, because they were leading the first flights of the day, they overnighted in their respective airports the night before. Who had access to those planes? They had inside help. This was not an accidental moment here. They planned this. They were smart.
Well, I don't think that anyone would disagree with that, or anyone would disagree with how horrific this is and how diabolically ingenious and unimaginable. I'm more curious about the reaction that you got and how we as individuals and as a country are responding in a way that I really want to understand, because I want to understand why this too has to separate us, when actually we seem very much in unison. I mean, one of the things that I've never experienced in my lifetime is such a sense of unity in this country, and even in the midst of that, people able to disagree. So while it's hard to articulate, but while it feels like such a complex and agonizing problem and people can disagree, I'm still amazed and astonished at how extraordinary it is to be here in this time and see how amazing it is to be an American.
You took exception to something the President said tonight, which I think you have every right to do. And there are people in this country, lots of them, right now, who will say, you shouldn't have done that.
But
he's our
Makes
president.
this country so amazing.
I understand that, darling. You don't have to tell me.
And because I'm saying I stand behind him 100%.
I do
but
too.
let's examine this in the most complex, wise, challenging way, because that's what it calls for. And also, let us not constantly spin things into a language that defines it and defines you and defines me, because the problem is too big for that.
That's right.
It has to be challenged in every possible way.
Okay, I have to take a commercial. We'll be right back. Okay, speaking about hysteria, Peter, you just mentioned marriages and engagements up 250%.
Well, there's no middle ground here. People are either, I know people who were like dating last week. On September 12th, they moved in because they wanted to be close. No, it's true.
Or they broke up.
Or they broke up. There's no middle ground.
All right. Now, I want to get to your issue, which is airline safety. But before I do, as a way of getting into it, I want to say that about 2 days before this awful event happened, I saw a little box in the corner of USA Today with a chart, and the chart was what teachers spend for supplies for their own students. And I'm like, why are teachers with their crappy, crummy salaries out of pocket buying supplies for the students? Wait a second. And what is the connection? The connection is we don't want to pay for what we're greedy. We have been greedy, and we need to change that. We don't pay the military enough, we don't pay our teachers enough, and we certainly didn't pay for enough airline security. And that's the problem, right?
Well, you'd be surprised.
Nobody wanted to pay for it.
To tell you the truth, we have been paying for it. Every time you buy an airline ticket, 10% of that ticket goes to the Aviation Trust Fund. It's now over $14 billion. It's designed to improve airport facilities and improve airport security, and it's never been tapped by Congress, because every year they use it to, quote-unquote, balance the budget. We're taxed for it. Where's the representation? The money's already there.
Wow. I did not know that.
The parallel is interesting, because the truth is the money is there for education. But we have so many administrators. This country spends more on education percentage-wise, and let alone absolute numbers, than almost any society on earth, including most West European countries. We have so many administrators in our system, and that's a big part of the reason teachers don't get more. We do spend a lot, just like we spend on security. It just doesn't go where we pay it to go to.
Right. Well, how do we get it to where it's supposed to go?
Well, first we got to establish what kind of security we want. Traditionally, airport security was a psychological deterrent against truly emotionally disturbed people. That was it. Now, when we live, guys, it's true. And now when we live in a world where they're training their children to be martyrs, when people are willing to die for their cause, the rules of the game have changed. You've got to go from a psychological deterrent to a physical deterrent. That's where we are right now.
Let me ask you a question. I agree with that, but here's an example where I think there is a little hysteria now that you mention it. And aside from
oh, now you see the hysteria.
Aside from your issue, which I agree is overdone, absolutely. I don't understand. Maybe there's an answer. I have raised this on my show now for the whole week. No one has explained it. Why is there no curbside check-in?
I'll tell you why. When you use skycaps as your first line of defense, what kind of questions do they ask you? They might as well say to you, did you pack the bomb yourself?
What do you think they
Has
ask
the bomb
me?
been with you all the time?
Wait, why do you think they ask at the counter?
I know.
What my IQ is?
I mean,
it's the same
it's
thing.
ridiculous.
What a joke that all
Right.
was.
Well, wait, but
Did
it's
you
a
pack
joke.
your own bags?
But
You
it's a
got me.
joke.
It was Osama bin Laden. He packed my
Exactly.
bags today.
Wait.
That's right. Sorry.
But it's a joke no matter who asks you.
Yeah.
Why does it matter who asks you?
Right. All right.
The reason why there's no curbside
Peter?
checking is they don't want people to drive anywhere near the curb right now. They're keeping everybody away from the perimeter of the airport.
We got to do a lot more than that. We got to take a break. Seconds. Answer me one thing. Why can't they lock that door, the pilot in the cockpit, like a bank vault, and nobody, when the plane lands, they come and unlock the door?
Rhetorical question. They can.
Yes, they can.
Yes, they
right?
can.
Somebody said, like a bank vault. Right, so that nobody could get in there. They don't have to the stewardess bring them lunch. Throw a sandwich in before the plane leaves. All right. Thank you very much.